This has been a very big eye-opener for me because as you'll see as we go through this presentation that there are many things that we did not know that we can do as small business owners. So today on our agenda will be basically we're going to talk about the purpose of paying our children wages. We're going to talk about the types of employment that our children can be under based on their age. Then we're going to talk about tips for hiring your children and then the steps in which we can do that and a little bit of other information. And then after that, we will get into our Q&A. First of all, I want to thank you guys for getting on the call tonight. I know that you are very busy, and I do apologize for the technical difficulties that we had earlier today, but that's okay because we're going to get going here. I'm ready to rock and roll. So today, the purpose really here is to show families how owning a small business and putting your children to work can save you up to $12,000 per year per child in tax benefits. Do children cost you money or make you money? 99.9% of the time, children cost us money. So in 2017, the standard wage to pay your children was up to $63.50. In 2018, that standard wage now to pay your child is $12,000. However, one thing I'm going to say throughout this presentation is just because we have the opportunity to pay our children, we have to make sure that we can also afford to pay our children that wage. And I say that because we can't make $50,000 and think we're going to pay, two children that we may have in the home $12,000. That's just not affordable for that particular wage. So we want to make sure that what we pay our children is definitely affordable based on the wages that we're bringing in our household. I'll try to stop throughout this presentation. It won't be long so that you can ask questions if you have any questions or concerns, okay? So types of employment. What are the different types of employment? Employees are people who work for a business or receive a monetary compensation from their employer for the return for their services. So basically, when we're paying our children, we want to pay our children over a fixed period or term, as I would say. An employee who is on a fixed period or a fixed term employment has kind of a prearranged end date to their employment. So that's what you want to do for your children. You don't want to make it a permanent full-time position because most children under the age of 18 can only work so many hours during the week because they go to school. Full-time is not allowed for them. Permanent part-time means that employees is someone who will not be meeting the requirements for full-time hours and who also has no predetermined end date. Basically, we have to develop a contract for each employee. So when we develop that contract, they will actually have an end date because at one point in time, our children will reach the age of 18. Therefore, we won't be able to pay them this type of wage without issuing them what we call a 1099. And we'll talk about that a little more in the presentation. So basically, for our children, when we're paying them a wage, we're going to select a fixed period or a term for their employment contract. So the other thing I want to talk about is when developing a contract for each child, basically what we want to do is we want to give them a fixed period of from the beginning of that year to the end of that year. So basically it's a calendar year. We're going to start on January 1st. We're going to end that employment on December 31st of 2018. That's basically how I put together the contracts for each one of my children. And what I want to do right now is I want to bring up a contract for you guys so that you can actually see what a contract looks like. Basically, when you develop a contract, and you can see I have one here on my screen, you want to develop that contract between yourself as the parent, and it can be two of you as the parent, Then you want to put their name, and the person that the second party is your actual child. They're called the employee. And you put this contract together. You can go on any free legal site, and I'll bring that up in the end, to develop this particular contract. It's free of charge, okay? And you want to develop a contract, actually put their name in here as the contract. If you go on like Legal Depot or LegalZoom or any of those free legal sites, they will help you develop a contract, and they will put all of this information in there for you. You just have to put in things like the term, the date, how much you plan to pay them, and what they are getting paid for. Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind as we go through this, especially what they're getting paid for. This contract right here I developed on Legal Depot. You get a free 7-day trial. So what I did is I went into legaldepot.com. I typed in employee contract, and they created this whole contract for me. I just had to answer some questions, and some of those questions were, when do they begin their employment? What is their job title? Typically, their job title is contract labor, and you can see that here on line 3. I put contract labor, all administrative duties pertaining to the business by which I own. I do own 2 businesses. I have my myEcon business and I have a hair business. So you want to make sure that when you are hiring your children to work in your business, that they're actually doing the work for you, and we'll get to that in a second. But within this contract, you can put all types of different job duties that you want your child to perform throughout the year for your businesses. Keep in mind, it has to be very smart, right? You can't say that a 10-year-old is going to drive a forklift, right, truck or something like that. So it has to be real work that they're actually doing. And you guys have to agree to that. In my contract, I put advertising. My kids might go out and they might help me distribute some of my cards. I put marketing in here. Any clerical work, data entry. Those data entries could be them entering my receipts into our cash flow manager, cleaning up of my salon that's in my basement. It could be distribution. It could be order fulfillment. They can order some things online in my back office for me. They can do some of my accounting for me, where they can write checks for me. All miscellaneous duties, coordinate meetings, things of that sort, so that we make this contract as legal as possible. The government says 2 things. One, you make an attempt to do a business, but you have to keep good records. So I want to make sure that I have a record of this contract in my file in the event I ever get caught upon to show cause of my children working for me. So this right here is a contract. Again, you can go on Law Depot or any legal free site, and you can develop a contract and just fill out the blanks. It'll take you about 5 minutes to do so. This is the contract I have here. I have 3 children. I have a contract for each one of them individually, so that they all can be accountable for the work that I need them to do for me. So I'm going to get back to this presentation. So some great tips for hiring your children. When you hire your children, again, hire your child to do real work, right? And I just explained some of that real work for you. The work your child does must be normal and necessary for your business. If it doesn't pertain to your business, then of course you can't have your child doing something that it really doesn't pertain to your business. So be careful with that when you develop your contract. A lot of times people put in their contract, they'll just say contract labor. I went into a little bit more detail because I have a specific hair business. I wanted to make sure that I outlined all of those things that can be done in my hair business. But if you want to keep it vague, you can put contract labor. Your child doesn't have to be indispensable, but the task your child performs should be common and helpful for your business too. So they have to kind of add value to your business. The work that they're doing has to add value, and it has to kind of either eliminate waste, make more profit for you, whatever the case may be. It has to add value for your particular business. So keep that in mind as you look at these different tips on hiring your child to do real work. Other thing is you have to give your child a real wage, which means you cannot just hand them cash, okay? So keep that in mind. You cannot just hand a child cash in hand. There has to be something that is completely traceable and traceable back to your bank account, okay? So, and you also have to think about you can't transfer money from one account to the other. The two ways that you can give your child a real wage is to, one, write them a check, right, from your business account or from your personal account if you don't have an EIN number, or you can actually do a direct deposit. Now, most individual sole proprietorships don't do a direct deposit, but what they would do is write their child a check. Big corporations, if you get to be really big, then maybe you can do direct deposit. I know there's a fee when it comes to the banks for that, for the actual company, and that could also be written off also. Understand that you cannot pay your child's tuition, or you cannot also pay any of their expenses and then say that that was towards their wage. What you would do is actually pay them that wage and then have them pay their tuition or have them pay something else that they need to pay for. But you never want to pay directly to a source for your child, because that is not considered a wage. It's only considered a wage if you are actually paying your child via a direct deposit or a check. So keep that in mind and keeping your good records, because then it's traceable back to your account, okay? In addition to that, Nicole, let me know if you can't hear me.
I can hear you, but somebody is unmuted. It looks like there's a 586 number. And Maria, if you go on the drop down, you'll be able to see that it doesn't have the mute sign. We just need to mute that person. Someone with the 586-859 number is unmuted.
Can you? Can you hear me, Nicole? Gosh, this is driving me crazy.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I didn't touch anything, so I didn't know what happened. I think I was at separate family jobs and work jobs, meaning you have to separate the fact that your child might be cleaning their room. That wouldn't be considered a work job. It would be considered, their regular chores or whatever. So make sure that you separate, the kids washing dishes or cleaning their room or doing the laundry from an actual work job. That's another reason why on the contract I always list the particular jobs that I need my children to perform, okay? So keep that in mind, too, as you go through that. And I'm going to give you guys some links at the end of this presentation so that you can follow up on some of the things that we're talking about here today. The other thing is you have to follow child labor laws. So when hiring children, you must follow those laws. Child labor laws kind of dictate when children can work, what jobs they can do, and how much you can actually pay them. This year, the government is saying we can pay our children up to $12,000 per child a year. So that's basically $1,000 a month. However, we can't have them doing a ton of different things that's not worth that $1,000. So there are a lot of labor laws out there that you have to follow, meaning you can't have them, doing any, I want to say, inappropriate things on the job. So keep in mind that labor laws do apply here when it comes to hiring your children. You also have to comply with employment laws. You must treat your child the same way you would treat any other employee. This means you must follow some of the employment laws, and this may require a form that you have to fill out, which is why we're talking about writing contracts for your children, because that's one of the forms that you also need. In some cases, depending on your level of employment or the level of your business, whether you're a corporation or not, then you have to submit, W-4s and things, I-9s and things of that sort. But I don't think we need to get into that because I'm not sure. I don't think any of us are to that level yet. But if you do get to that level, then there's some links that I'll give you also that you can go on and you can research that information. Depositing wages. Typically what I do is my children, I write them a check at the beginning of the month, and they go and they deposit it into their account. I have them save that money, or I have them pay some of the bills that they need to pay with that particular money. Speaking of tuition, my son's getting ready to go to college, so we're saving for, some miscellaneous items that he'll need while going to college. He can leave that money into his account. But you have to have them deposit that money into their account so that you can show traceability, documentation for them in the event that government ever calls on you for that. I'll go back into paying your child a reasonable wage. If you cannot afford, or if they are not doing $1,000 worth of work, then you will definitely get questioned on, the amount that you're actually paying them. So even though the government says we can pay our children, $12,000 a year, if you divide it up by month, that will be $1,000 a month per child. If they're not actually doing the work for $1,000, then that would be questionable. So be reasonable in paying your child a wage. And when I say be reasonable, make sure you look at the market and see, what a clerical or data entry clerk gets paid per hour to do a particular job. So on average, if that's $10 or $15 per hour, you can't go pay your child $50 an hour. Okay, so you got to be careful with that on how you're actually paying your child each wage for the work that they actually do. It has to be reasonable, okay? And then you have to keep payroll records. So you have a cash flow manager that you can use, that you are entering all your expenses. So you should use the cash flow manager to actually enter the expense for wages. And there is a drop down where you can put wages, you can put reoccurring in that particular data entry. And as it reoccurs every month, you just go in there and you click yes, okay, as long as you've written your child a check for that particular month. So these are some of the top tips for hiring your children. Okay, these are some of the things that you need to do. There are a few more out there that you can take a look at, and again, I'll give you that link for that. So in next steps, I want to tell you to create a contract for your children. You can go to legaldepot.com. I put that here in this presentation. pick a day out of the month to pay your child. Okay, so as you're paying your child, if you're going to pay them every month at a particular time, or if you're going to do it bi-weekly, whatever the case may be, stick with that because it shows that you're keeping good records as you pay your child. And then it reoccurs every month. It's easier for you to pull that data out of your account statements as you go along throughout the year. Parents must have an account to pay wages via a check or direct deposit, but you have to have some type of account, banking account, to pay your children. It cannot be transferring money from one credit card to another or anything like that, or even from a bank account to another bank account. You have to have your own bank account, and you have to deposit money via direct deposit or check. And I can't stress that enough because I remember one year that I did not do that frequently, and that meant that, I couldn't claim that particular wage when I transferred money. Make sure your child has a bank account. There are different types of bank accounts that your children can have where you can actually pay into it and it's counted as a wage. So your children can have student accounts. Some children are under the age of 16. I think it's 15 actually for a high school savings account, but then they can actually get a student account if they're not of age. You can write checks into their 529 plan or even a Roth IRA. All of these things up here I do, so I'm very familiar with how to pay our children in these bullet items here. There may be some other items out there that I'm unfamiliar with. So if you know of any, please do share that with me. I would suggest that you log into your cash flow manager and you but you put an entry in as wages. It's reoccurring and it's every month, right? That's how I do it. Some people can do it, biweekly. It's totally up to you. At the end of the year, what I do is I print out my entire expenses via Excel. I export it into Excel, and I make sure I give that to my tax preparer. This year I may prepare my taxes myself. On this, there's a Schedule C that you will file with your tax return for your wages, and that's on line 26 of the Schedule C. So you would put whatever your total amount is for the year for the wages that you've paid on line 26 of your Schedule C. And then there are other things on the Schedule C, too, that you will also add. So basically, it's very simple in paying your children a particular wage. It's very simple to do that. But the good thing about it is we have the different steps that you need to take to actually pay those wages. Hold on one second. I'll try to maximize the call again. Okay, hopefully you all can hear me. Okay, great. I have added some links to the bottom of this slide so that you guys can be aware of some of the different areas you can go to get other tips on paying your child a wage. So with that, I want to bring up again, I do apologize for the quality of this call. I apologize for the technical difficulties in this, and I'll work that out again next time. But does anyone have any questions or concerns about how to pay a child a wage? Patient to anyone who please press.
Hey, Maria, you're breaking up a little bit. So I'm not sure what happened, but your last statement was breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me now, Nicole?
Yep, I can hear you. That 586 number again, and it looks like Marquita is unmuted, so I don't know if they're planning to speak, but if not, we should mute them out.
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? So with the account that you're going to open for your child, can your name be listed on it, or does it have to only be their name?
So your name can be listed on it also. I think for a minor, what I did was I listed them first, and then I was also put on that particular account with them. So I can control their money also. So for them to open an account, they have to be, I believe, 13 years of age. You would go into the bank, and you would just have to take ID with you. If they do not have a school ID, then you will have to take their birth certificate and their Social Security card.
So, Maria, question. I thought they could be younger than 13. It would just be that they would need to have the birth certificate because some of the kids, like 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, will qualify, right, for to be hired to work in your home. So how would that work if they're under 13?
Right. So for like 6 and 7-year-olds, Cameron opens her account so for 7-year-olds, basically you guys are equal on that account, and their name does not go first, but that's still because they're on that account.
Okay, so you can open up an account for a child that's under 13. It's just it'll be a little bit different.
That is correct. So you can still open up an account, but you are solely account. You're on that account. Sorry, not solely, but you're on that account with you. For a 13-year-old and up, you don't have to be on there with them, meaning they have all the time to do to work that account. For a 9-year-old, they can go into like the bank and get money out. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So there are different rules, but you can still manage it to where you can show documentation on you paying that child.
And essentially, and I just want to add a point so everyone understands, because some people may look at this and say, wow, that seems like a lot of work. But what people have to remember is, number one, this is a real business, so you have to treat hiring people like a real business. So, yes, you do need to have a contract. It needs to be formal because your business is a formal business. And the trade-off of putting together the paperwork to get thousands of dollars in tax write-offs, there's no comparison. It's certainly a return on your investment of time to put together a contract and keep good records to benefit. So what was your amount, Maria, that you wrote off last year?
Right. So I wrote off $19,050. And basically, just think about it like this. If you make $60,000 a year, $19,000, you might as well say $20,000 taken off of that. Now my taxable income is only $40,000. So that $20,000 to decrease your taxable income is definitely worth the effort that you put into this. The 1 hour that you spend going to open up that bank account for your child, and then the 10 minutes that you spend, putting in the record keeping and writing them a check every month. It's definitely a great return in investment.
And I've had someone ask a question before about, once I deposit that money into the child's account, can I use that money for whatever we need? So how would you answer that?
Yeah, so basically what I do now is, because especially with the amount going up this year, we have to be very careful that we can afford to pay your child. But what I've done is one of our, the prime things that we do in this business, and that's income shifting. So what I would do is, as they deposit money into their account from the checks that I write them, I would actually have them pay a bill in the household. So now I'm teaching them how to not only work for their money, but I'm also teaching them how to manage that money and pay some of their bills. So I actually have, like, my DTE automatically comes out of my son's account every month. So I have them paying some of the household bills in the house so that I don't have to continuously transfer money back into my account, by which you could do, but it's just easier to pay some of those bills out of your child's account.
Okay, awesome. That's a great approach and a great way to do it. It looks like we have a message from Crystal, a question that says, what is the percentage of wages allowable for the amount of profit made in the business? So I think, Crystal, you're trying to find out, is there a direct relationship to how much profit you make to how much you can pay your kid? Do you want to answer that, Maria, or I can if you want?
So I think I spoke on this just a little bit. You want to make sure that you can afford to pay your children. I don't think that there's a direct correlation or percentage of profit that you have to make for you to pay your child, because again, starting off in this business, we may not make a lot of money the first year, first 6 months. It just kind of depends on our flow. If you think about it, are we going to make in the first, month or two $1,000 or $2,000, which is what we actually pay our child? So the answer is no. There is no direct correlation of percentage that you pay your child based on the percentage of your profit. But I do say to be very mindful and careful of how much you are paying your child, because you want to be able to afford to pay that child based on the money that you are making in your business and based on the money that you make on your child.
So, and just to make sure everyone understands that, you don't have to turn a profit in order to hire your kid. It's not a requirement. So, Maria, when you did your $19,000, when you did your overall, you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but I think it's important for people to understand, did your expenses outweigh your income where you had a profit or a loss?
So I had a loss. My expenses for my econ business and my hair business and paying my wages along with other expenses, I netted a loss for 2016.
Okay, and that's perfect. And I just want to make sure everyone understands that's perfectly okay, that you net a loss. And usually when people are starting out in their businesses, you're going to take a loss for a period of time, because you're getting up to speed and your business is growing and you're investing money into your business. So it's not illegal or unfounded for a person to take a loss on their business for multiple years.
I have a question. When you're paying your kids this money, they have to file taxes on their own when they make a certain amount.
Good question.
That's a great question. So only if they go over. Now they could file. You can file under the amount. You can file if you want. Put it that way. You can file if you want. It's totally up to you. But you don't have to file if you do not, or you don't have to claim that if you do not pay them more than the allowable cost. So the allowable cost for 2018, or the allowable wage, is $1,000 per month, which is $12,000 a year. They do not have to file taxes on that. If you go over, then you will have to file.
For the kids, What if your kids are 18?
So if your kids are 18, then that is a different story because the law says you can pay your child up to this particular amount up to 18 years of age. Once they go over 18 years of age and you are still paying them, you would issue them what we call a 1099. So
if
it's
you're
totally
using the
different once they reach 18 years of age.
Okay, and so if you issue them a 1099, there's no cap on the payment, but they do have to file taxes, don't they?
Correct.
At that time, yes. That is correct.
And if I can jump in, I have that situation. So my children are adults. They're in their 20s. And I still help them because one of them is in college still. And so when you have a child or any adult, it doesn't have to be just your children, any adult that you're helping out financially, you can hire them as a business owner under what's called contract labor, which is exactly what Maria is saying. You still have to do the same thing. You want to draw up a contract. You want to write them a check and so that they have a written paper trail. And if it's over $600, the IRS requirement is if it's over $600 that they made in the course of the year, you have to issue them a 1099 form. And this is what I had to do for my children. This is my second year doing that. And so you can get a free 1099 form online. You have to get an EIN number if you're dealing with adults that you hire, including your children. And it takes literally 10 minutes to get an EIN number, and it's free. It's no charge. So you can do this for free. You can get an EIN number, employer identification number, and you can do a 1099 and submit that to the IRS. You have to log it as a business expense under wages, just like you would if they were kids. And you have to, and then they have to include that 1099 as part of their income. Now, what they should do, because they will be legally required, adults will be legally required to pay taxes. But because you hired them as a contractor, they now can take those same tax deductions that you get as a business owner so that they don't have to pay taxes on that money. And that's exactly what my son did. He, by way of me hiring him, that made him a 1099. So then he started tracking all of his expenses so that he did not have to pay taxes on the money that I paid out to him last year. So you can hire your grown children or any other adult for that matter in your business. So what I do is if somebody comes to me and says they need some money, well, I can hire you. And that's how we can do it. I'm not just in the business of giving away money, but I will hire you. You can do some real work for me, and I'll pay you so I can write it off, and I can show you how to not have to pay taxes on that money. So that's the way that you can do it for an adult.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Where do you get the EIN?
We can send a link, or if you Google just employer identification number or EIN, if you Google that, it'll be a form. It's a link it's on the IRS's website, irs.gov, and it literally takes 10 minutes to set up an EIN number, and it's free. There's no charge to do it. And then when you go to file your taxes, you'll just make sure you want to record that. And like I said, I'll send a link to the free 1099 form as well, because there's a lot of them out there that want you to pay money for it. But you can get a 1099 for free and even file it with the IRS at no charge.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Nicole, you got anything else you think I should bring up?
One of the things I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes talking about, because I know we do have some guests who are not myEcon associates on our call. I just wanted to stress the value of becoming a business owner, especially with the tax reform laws that were just paid. It definitely favors more for the business owners to win. And this child tax of $12,000 per kid is only one of the many tax deductions that we are afforded as business owners at myEcon. We're able to write off things like our mileage, driving our car, it's 54 cents a mile for 2018. We can write off our actual car expenses. We can write off our communication. When we travel and go out of town, we make those business-related trips so that we can write those off. There's many, many different things that we have at our disposal as a business owner, and these are things that you're already spending money on that you can now use to get tax deductions. And, of course, the more tax deductions you have, the fewer taxes you have to pay, the more money you bring home into your paycheck. So it definitely is advantageous for people to become business owners because you get to keep more of your money and you get to essentially write off your lifestyle. And that's all I wanted to add.
Okay, great, Nicole. Thank you. I didn't realize we had others on the call that were not currently business owners, so that was a great plug.
All right.
Any other questions from anyone? How to pay your children? Well, what I'll do is I'll save this recording, and I'll also save the presentation, and we'll make sure that we get it out to the participants that were on this call today. All right, if there are no other questions, I will close the line. You guys have to proceed.
Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.